Funding for this program is provided in part by Bruce Foods Corporation, makers of the complete line of Cajun King seafood seasoning mixes and other distinctive Louisiana-style food products. Additional funding is provided by the Louisiana Department of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism. Anytime, any place. In Louisiana, we're really cooking.
Louisiana. Hi, I'm Chef John Folse, welcoming you to the bayous of South Louisiana. Today, Cajun and Creole cooking holds a prime spot in the world of international cuisine, and I would love for you to know a little bit about it. So why not sit back, relax, and join me and some of my friends as we cook up another great Taste of Louisiana. Again, and welcome to A Taste of Louisiana. I'm Chef John Folse, and today we're doing camp cooking. That's right, camp cooking. That's probably the style of cooking that gave all of the foundation to Cajun and Creole cuisine as we know it today. And a little bit later on in the show, I'm going to be visited by one of my great friends, one of the great outdoorsmen of Louisiana, a guy from New Orleans by the name of Frank Davis, who's a cookbook writer, and he's just an entrepreneur of all sorts, but he knows a lot about camp cooking, and he's going to come on out and visit with us. Now, when I talk about camp cooking, what exactly am I talking about? Camp cooking is a culture in Louisiana. Here we're taking a ride down one of those great little bayous. Actually, this is Blind River that flows into Lake Maurepas, and this is where a lot of the camps are. It's a Sunday morning probably, and here's a little bateau going by dragging one of these great buoys, and here's a camp. This is what one of the styles of camps in South Louisiana looks like. It can be a little 1 or 2 room floating camp just like this, and notice the number of people sitting on the porch, or it can be a little lean-to shack like the ones you see here. It's not uncommon to have 2-story or 3-story camps that actually rival some of the great brick homes and subdivisions in South Louisiana. Some of the floating camps actually prepare dishes like this great, what is this, jambalaya. This is actually chicken, beef, sausage jambalaya being cooked in the black iron pots on one of the floating boats as it's going down Blind River. And you can see how nice and crystal clear this water is, how beautiful the scenery is on this morning. And yes, must be Sunday because this is a church. This is a little church in the swamplands of South Louisiana, Our Lady of Blind River, because so many people come to the camps on Sunday. There's no way to get out and go to church, but they don't want to miss Mass. So sure enough, the priest comes out to the bayous, even though it's pouring down rain, to say Mass on a Sunday morning. Look at this camp. Think of that little bitty old boat, that little dugout that went by a couple minutes ago, and look at this thing, a gigantic 2 or 3 suite floating boat. And Sunday afternoon, real late, everyone hates to go home. So what's the first thing you do? Crank up the old band, crank up the jukebox, fiddles and squeeze boxes, and get out there for the Cajun 2-step. It's a great way to spend a holiday or a weekend in Cajun country at the camps. And I mentioned a minute ago that camp cooking actually gave probably the foundation to the way we cook today, and that's probably true because in the early days, camps could have been a hunting camp or a fishing camp. But the men were great trappers in early Louisiana, so they would go out into the swamplands for 4 to 6 months at a time, and they needed a place to stay. They needed a place to find shelter and also cook, and the camps were exactly the place that became their second homes in the bayous of South Louisiana. And cooking they did. They had a lot of time to cook and a lot of fresh wild game and seafoods to put into the black iron pots of the camp cooking. So some of the things that we do today, like onions, celery, bell pepper, garlic, wild mushrooms into the black iron pot, I really feel originated in camp culture back in the swamplands of Louisiana in the late 1600s or early 1700s. So the first dish that I want to do for you this morning is a dish that I know originated in the camps of South Louisiana, and that is Turtle Sauce Piquante. There's many different turtles that we actually make the dish out of. There's we were kidding a little earlier about cowan, which is one of the great turtles of sauce piquante, but the soft shells and the loggerheads and the big snapping turtles of the bayous of Louisiana make just beautiful sauce pecans. And the interesting thing about turtle, if you can look into this little bowl that I have here, turtle is known for having 7 distinct different flavors in its meat. We have real white meat like this, which could be veal or chicken or pork or very white meat. We have dark meat like the game or heavy beef, wild game, of course. But there's also fish, and what else do we have here? Wild birds like poultry or duck or anything. A lot of 7 different distinct flavors in turtle meat, which is why I think Cajuns like to use it. They can get a flavor of all of the different types of meats when they use turtle. I've started in the black iron pot here with a Cajun roux. Now, I know good and well that you know that a roux is the basis for all Cajun cuisine, and we begin with equal parts of oil and flour, and we get it to a nice dark brown, as you see here, because the sauce piquant is actually, I guess, originated in Spain, and piquant means, of course, heat or spice, and sauce piquant was originally a red dish, similar to the Creoles, like the shrimp Creoles. However, the Cajuns put the dark brown roux into it, a little extra spice, and it became the sauce piquant. So we're going to begin the way we begin everything else in Louisiana. I'm going to kick this fire up so we get a nice simmer. I'm going to begin with the Trinity of Seasonings, as we call it. We're going to begin with onions, a lot of nice diced onions, a lot of celery. And what I've done earlier today was to make a nice turtle stock by taking the meat of the turtle, which is always on bones, and boil it with onions and celery and garlic for a good while until the meat became very tender, because turtle has a tendency to be a little tough. So we actually cooked it for about an hour or two until the meat became very tender. Then we deboned it, but we kept the turtle stock. And that's the important thing in a good sauce piquant, is to have that good turtle flavor that we get from the stock. But yet, the boiling tenderizes the tougher cuts of turtle meat and makes it really nice when we put it in the pot. So it cuts down the length of time that you have to cook the dish also. Now, of course, as is always true in Cajun cooking, a lot of garlic. We have to put a lot of garlic. I said from Spain, but you know the Cajuns and Creoles loved a lot of garlic. That's about 10 heads of garlic, actually. A little bit red bell pepper. We like that color in the dish, naturally. And then fresh Creole tomatoes. A lot of nice Creole tomatoes in there, because sauce piquant has a nice pink color to it, a really nice rust color that the tomatoes gives the dish. Look at all those great flavors into the roux. Onion, celery, bell pepper, garlic. Look how pretty and golden brown this roux is. Into that, I'm going to put some Rotel tomatoes, and the Rotel tomatoes has a nice hot pepper in it, like these real little hot jalapenos. So it's going to give the nice piquant that we're looking for in the dish. I'll continue to stir this around for just a second. And then the turtle meat. We've taken the turtle meat, and as I said, we've boiled it for a couple of minutes, and I want you to see just how nice this is. All those pretty different colors of the white and the dark meat, and that's going to go down into the roux. Once it's into the roux, we'll mix it up. Camp cooking at its best. Turtle sauce piquante. Look at these flavors coming together in the pot. Move this old bowl out of my way. And then, of course, the stock. We have to have the turtle stock down into the pot. And the turtle stock was made, as I say, with all the great flavors of Louisiana. But imagine how much more concentrated the flavor of this turtle dish will be, because we're using stock instead of water. But, of course, you can use water or chicken stock if you want to. It'll still give it a great flavor. Put a couple more ladles of the turtle stock in. And you want, this will be a stew. The sauce piquant is not a soup. It's actually a real thick stew. Look how hot that black pot is. These old black pots are just beautiful to cook in because they retain the heat so nicely. Look at that beautiful color of that sauce. Now the tomatoes and the garlic and all these things will start to combine with that great turtle stock in the dish. And what we will have here is a flavor that's just incomparable to anything I've ever tasted in South Louisiana. A little bit more stock. I'll put a couple more ladles of that good hot turtle stock. And you want it, as I said, to have the consistency of a really nice, rich, thick stew. And since the turtle has been poached, it's nice and tender, so we don't have to sit here and cook it for hours and hours the way we would have done in the camps in the old days, because the Cajuns didn't really use stocks in the early days. They made all their stocks naturally in the pot by combining all of the raw ingredients and slowly cooking it for 2 or 3 hours. However, with our busy lifestyles today, we certainly don't want to give up the good taste of the turtle sauce pecan, but we want to rush it up just a little bit. Now, green onions. We have to have some pretty green onions in here. I'm going to put some fresh parsley, just a touch of parsley, and then I'm going to allow this to cook for just a minute. I'm going to wait to season it, but I'm going to put a couple dashes of Louisiana hot sauce because, again, this is a piquant. We want a nice spicy taste to it, so I'm going to put a little bit of the hot sauce and let the hot sauce all come together in the turtle sauce pecan. Now, we'll allow it to cook for about 30 minutes, and it'll be perfectly done because the turtle is tender and the flavor is pronounced in the turtle stock. So I'll move this off to the side here onto another fire because, and I'll make this fire real nice and low so it'll simmer without scorching my, oh boy, you need a friend. You need a friend to cook in this pot. And of course I'll move my turtle stock out of the way. We won't need that anymore. And I'll lower this fire. Okay, the next dish that I want to do for you is a very interesting dish in South Louisiana because it gave origin to our magnificent seafood gumbo. And most people don't realize that gumbo originated in South Louisiana back in the late 1600s and early 1700s with the introduction of the Creoles to the city of New Orleans. And when the Creoles arrived, they brought with them the grand cooking style of Europe. And of course, one of the dishes they brought with them was bouillabaisse, that great seafood soup of the Mediterranean in the south of France, in the northern part of Italy. And that soup was made with a lot of fresh seafoods. And when the Creoles arrived in Louisiana, of course, they couldn't find all of the ingredients to make the bouillabaisse, but they found some much, much better ingredients to make a similar soup that we call today Cajun Bouillabaisse. And of course, it's the origin of our seafood gumbo. So I want to make that dish for you. I'm going to start with a nice big old Dutch oven. I'm going to put the Dutch oven right here. And look at these great seafoods. I want you to look at all the seafoods that's going to go into the bouillabaisse this morning. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit olive oil in the bottom of the Dutch oven because we're going to begin with the olive oil taste of the south of France. And then into that, a lot of nice fresh seasonings. I hope you can get a good look at this. Look at the pretty colors. I'm going to begin with onions, a lot of onions, because again, fresh flavor coming together in the bouillabaisse pot. I'm going to put fresh carrots, diced carrots. We're looking for the sweetness of the carrots. Look at this. This is almost pretty enough to make a soup with without seafoods, but I'm going to add the seafoods now. The first layer on the bottom is shrimp. I'm going to put in here about, this is about a 16, 20 count shrimp to the pound, about 16 to the pound. Are these beautiful? Look how nice that is. And that's going to be the bottom layer of the bouillabaisse. On top of that, I'm going to put fresh Creole tomatoes because, again, this was a dish of Creole cooking, and we always wanted some pretty tomatoes. Isn't that beautiful? Fresh bell pepper. Really, really nice bell pepper right on top of the shrimp. We have to have crawfish, and I know I have some swamp crawfish, these nice red crawfish from the swamplands of South Louisiana, and they make a beautiful stock. So they're going to go into the pot next, right on top of the tomato. Put those in there. And then oysters. Oysters in their own liquid right on top of the crawfish. Imagine the flavors coming together in this Creole bouillabaisse. Get in there, shrimp. I need you to take your place. Garlic. A lot of fresh garlic. Look at all these pretty nice heads of garlic. I'm going to put them right down in here. A little bit more of the red bell pepper, because again, we're looking for a lot of color and flavor. And then celery. Put a lot of celery in here. Look at that beautiful celery. Look at the colors going into this dish. Can you imagine that much seafood and color? Fresh crabs. Nope, we're not finished with seafood yet. Fresh crabs. Look at here. And all of these ingredients are going to start to cook together in the pot to be really, really nice. Then some fresh red snapper. right on top. All the seafoods of the bayous of Louisiana into one pot. And then I've made a really nice seafood stock. This is a shellfish stock. I'm going to pour it right on top of the Cajun Bouillabaisse because this dish is going to be baked for about, I guess 20, 25 minutes. And once all of it starts to come together inside of this steamer, you can imagine the flavor that's going to be derived in this pot. A little black pepper. I'm going to put some fresh rosemary right down inside of it. And, of course, some sassafras leaves. The sassafras leaves are the leaves of the filet plant, the ones that we ground and dry to make filet to put on top of our gumbo. That's going to be down into the pot. A nice sprig of basilico, fresh basil, and then whole black peppers, and, of course, some bay leaves. I want a little touch of bay leaves in here. Put the bay leaves right down inside of the pot. Imagine how magnificent all those flavors are going to be once they come together inside of the Cajun Bouillabaisse pot. Now, this is going to go into the oven to bake, I guess, for about, as I say, 30 minutes. And once it all steams together, the natural juices of all the seafood combined with the onions and celery and the great stock that we have in here is a dish that's just absolutely unbelievable. And I have some right back here in the oven that I'm going to show you a little bit of. Let me move this out of the way. I'll go into the oven here and get this out. This has been baking for about 30 minutes. Oh, boy, is this heavy. What a smell. Let me close this oven door quickly. Wait till you see this. Cajun Bouillabaisse. Can you imagine that? Look at the colors in that pot. Look at the colors down there. I've got to dish up. I have got to dish up a little bit of this. Can you imagine that flavor? Look at the carrots and all of the pretty celery and the color. And then we could go into here and get the crawfish, because this is all eaten by hand. You would just pull all of these. Look at the shrimp. You pull all of the shrimp and everything into the dish and actually eat it all by hand. So I'm going to put a little touch of this up here. We'll sample this a little bit later on. And I'll leave this here for us to taste in just a second. Okay, now there's a lot of other dishes that we would serve as accompanying dishes to this. One of the things that I like the most on this particular dish is a squash sauté, because I like to combine all of the flavors of Louisiana, vegetables, meats, seafoods together in vegetables as well as in bouillabaisse pots or turtle sauce pecans. And this is just another example of the great marriage of flavors. I've got the squash, and this is what it looks like when it comes out of the sauté pans and mixed with the pecans and the hams. And what a great, great side dish or accompanying dish. And I noticed that when I was at a camp just a couple days ago, that there was a great squash that was growing in the bayous called Loofa Squash, and the Cajuns not only used it to this big old thing to dry as a gourd, but also they would take the inside and dry it out and use it as a back scratcher or use it as a pot scrubber in the kitchen. So a multitude of reasons to grow and use squash in Louisiana. Well, I tell you, I just heard some footsteps coming down that hallway. I can hear the feet.
John, where are you?
Hey, there he is. Hey, I thought you were on a boat shrimping all day.
I was on a boat, Shaq. ¿Cómo se va?
Oh, come ça.
You know what I got for you? I got you some of the prettiest shrimp you ever saw this year.
Man,
but I ain't going to clean them. You got to pull the heads and everything. Come on, take these. They're heavy.
More work.
No, you got to clean them and everything. I got some crabs out there, too. We got some more gumbo.
I appreciate that. You know, that's just like camp. That's just like the camp. Everybody's got to bring food,
everybody brings food at the camp. This is great. What you cook? That's all that's left of that alligator I brought you?
Man, you know, you brought me that 10-foot alligator. I made alligator sausage, alligator sauce pecan. I made alligator soup, and all that's left is the head, and I'm going to cook that thing next week.
Oh, yeah, I can't believe you. What do you got in here?
Man, I got
sauce
sauce
pecan.
pecan.
That's a bouillabaisse.
Ain't that beautiful?
That is good. That's Cajun.
How you like that smell? That's the origin of gumbo. You know that, though, huh?
You better believe it.
Now,
I love camps.
You know, there's so many different camps. We were showing everybody a couple minutes ago all the different camps. Why do you think there's so many camps in Cajun culture? Everybody's got a camp.
Oh, that was the community, John. I mean, that's where everybody came together. You know, you got to realize that you're talking about Acadians that lived on the bayous, and they didn't go into town. They didn't They didn't go to church in the cities. They worked in one spot and they played in one spot, and they got together, and that was it. That was the city. That was the metropolitan area of Cajun life.
In the swampland.
In the swamps.
You know, I mentioned a while ago that I felt that it was the camps that really gave origin to a lot of the styles that we do in our cooking today, like the onions and celery and all of that. Because of the men back in there, don't you think that's probably a good...
well, the guys were the grocery shoppers, okay? You know, the women sat around and did their regular chores. They tried to take care of the house. They made sure that if the rains came, the pirogues didn't sink. But the guys went out and got everything. They went and got the mushrooms off the trees, and they pulled the wild onions. And if it wasn't for the alligators and the nutria and the crabs and the crawfish and the shrimp, there wouldn't be any dinner. So the guys would go grocery shopping, and everything comes nice and fresh out of the swamp, the lakes and the rivers.
Talking about all those ingredients, what's happening with our seafood today? I know you wrote 2 great seafood books in Louisiana. What's happening with all of our fresh seafood?
It's an interesting point, John, and we've gotten to the point now in the state of Louisiana where we all have to be concerned. For so long, we were spoiled. We had all we wanted, you know, go back to the days of the Acadians. You had a handful of people living on a bayou or a marsh or a swamp somewhere, and they had everything they could possibly want. And, of course, civilization moves along, and everybody decides they want a piece of that pie. It's like making one great big old apple pie. And if just you and I have to eat, we both get a half a pie. But if all of a sudden they got 30, 40 people eating that one little pie, then everybody gets less and less and less. So we've gotten to the point now where we've got to say, okay, enough of being spoiled. Let's take care of what we've got, the treasures of the state of Louisiana, and kind of conserve them a little bit, you know?
And that's where we are today.
I'm starving.
I want you to stir that sauce piquante pot.
Okay, let me do that.
And you know what we're going to do? Frank is one of the great cooks in Louisiana, too. He comes all the time to the house, and we do all kind of different dishes. But one of his favorite dishes is bread pudding, and so is mine. And bread pudding is one of the great dishes of...
We're making bread pudding.
It's one of the great dishes of camp life, isn't it? Good bread pudding?
Mm-hmm. This is good, too.
How's that? What you need in there? What you need in there, huh?
Got to put some more salt in there. You're light on the salt. I want some hot sauce.
But I didn't put any salt in there.
No, man, you got to put some more sauce. This is a sauce piquante.
Come on, it's going to be so hot, huh?
Serious. I'm getting serious with this sauce.
Go ahead. You want more salt? Let me put a little bit of salt in there.
Put some salt down there. Go
How's
ahead.
that? Now, I didn't season this yet. I don't want you talking bad about my sauce piquante before I even get a chance to season it.
It's got to bring explosion to your lips.
It's got to do a dance in your mouth.
The whole thing, yeah.
Well, look, while you're stirring that, I'm going to get ready for us to do this good bread pudding. And I'm going to tell you, I've got a friend of mine in the bayous, a guy by the name of Louis Jesselchek, who lives way back in French Settlement. You remember where French Settlement is. Okay, well, Louis came up with a bread pudding a long time ago, and him and his wife Sharon brought me that bread pudding. It was the best thing in the world. Now, I know you never saw that bread pudding before. I'm going to show it to you today.
Okay.
So I need some help.
I'll help you.
I'll tell you what I want you. Here, look, we've taken the bread so far, and let me give you a knife. Why don't you go ahead and slice some little bitty nice croutons out of there, and I've got, you see how it's done, all sliced nice, and we put cinnamon and nutmeg in here. But I'm going to make a quick sauce, and the sauce is made with about 6 eggs. I'm going to whip those eggs together because, again, the Cajuns only had the custard-based desserts, whether it was rice pudding, bread pudding, floating isles. It had to be a custard-based dessert if it was in the bayous or the camps of South Louisiana.
We don't need that, do we?
Oh, yeah, that's the crouston. You go, oh, Lord, you're going to eat my... Man, you just did something right there that goes back 200 years, dipping the end of the bread in the turtle sauce piquante pot, huh?
That's wonderful.
Okay, into this, I'm going to put a little bit vanilla. You put vanilla in your eggs and bread pudding, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Well, instead of sugar, I'm going to put a little bit of that cane syrup because I like cane syrup.
Great.
Instead, man, you talk about a flavor because it's got a little bit of that molasses in it.
It goes on pancakes and French toast and everything.
Man, put your finger in there and taste that, huh? Cane syrup, you can get it in any store, too, a little bit. Cinnamon?
I was dip that.
No, don't dip that bread in there. Look, I need that bread for the bread pudding. By the time you finish dipping in the sauce piquante,
the sauce piquante is something else, I tell you.
Isn't that good? Now, a little bit milk. I'm going to put about a quart of milk because, as I said, it is a custard-based dish. Stir that around a little bit. Let me ask you a question here, Frank.
Go ahead.
Now, I know you just came out of the swamps this morning.
Oh, it's pretty out there.
What's the most interesting camp you ever saw in your life? We're going up and down those bayous. What's the most interesting one?
I got to tell you, you're not going to believe this. They come in all kinds of sizes and shapes and configurations. There's one in the Pearl River Basin that you've got to see. I'm going to take you down to the Pearl River Basin. We're going to fish bass down there. But you got to see this camp.
When? I've been hearing that story.
No, when we
been that story
for
6 months.
When we eat today, I'm taking you fishing. I found a bunch of redfish just down the canal. Look, this little place is a camp, started off as a camp, will always be a camp, will never be anything but a camp, and is maintained as a camp, which means it's got about 17 nails in it and a whole bunch of boards, and they call it the Tilton Hilton. And it's actually falling into the Pearl River, but it's been through 6 or 7 hurricanes, Camille and everything else, and it's loaded with people every weekend and out there fixing gumbo and everything else.
Never fell yet.
No, it never fell. It's great.
Okay,
oh,
yeah, look, hey, I need some of that sauce piquante from my friends tonight. Now, you don't have to take it all. I'm going to give you a little bit to take home with you in the place of those crabs and shrimp you brought.
We're going to eat and then go fishing.
Okay, look, I put the custard mixture down into the bread. I'm going to use my hands to push the bread down into the milk.
Do that.
Otherwise, it won't be coated properly. And I'm going to continue to push it down in there. And, of course, that egg custard will cook like a nice caramel flan, and the bread will hold it all together, and it'll be a nice, moist, nice, juicy
How do you know when you
pudding.
got enough liquid? Because a lot of people make bread puddings that weigh 25 pounds a slice.
Well, I always like to be able to swish it around like this so that you have that nice, juicy look to it. If it looks juicy, it's going to be juicy, good and juicy. All right, and talk about juicy, look at here. Why don't you take that bread pudding out of the way?
I'll put this over.
Man, look, can you see this right here? Whoo, look at that bread pudding. Now, hey, that's a bread pudding. You hear
That's
me?
what I was going to do.
That's a
the
bread
croutons.
pudding.
I'm going to put the croutons on there for you.
I'm going to put the cane syrup right on top of it, and I might even take a little brush and move that around because that's going to be the sauce on top of this beautiful bread pudding cake. Look, Frank, look how moist that is and how juicy that is, okay? Now, why don't we go ahead and dish you up a little plate? Let me give you a little camp.
I was going to tear into the bread pudding.
You got a little camp plate? Look.
Oh, give me a
Get
camp
you a little
plate.
camp plate and serve that
I got to
up.
have this.
Well, I hope you enjoyed visiting with us on Camp Cooking today. I know good and well I enjoyed seeing my good friend Frank Davis. And all I can ask you is that you come back and visit us next time as we continue to cook up more of these great Taste of Louisiana. Man, put some rice on that sauce.
I'm going to put some rice on with
Hey, rice,
give me
son.
anything to eat with. I don't have any pork or anything. I'm not bringing you any more shrimp. No more crabs. Let's go fishing.
We're gonna go fishing.
I got some
All right.
red
Funding for this program was provided in part by Bruce Foods Corporation, makers of Bruce's Yams and other distinctive Louisiana-style food products. Additional funding is provided by the Louisiana Department of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism. Anytime, any place. In Louisiana, we're really cooking.
The companion cookbook to A Taste of Louisiana is available for $22.95. The Evolution of Cajun and Creole Cuisine by Chef John Folse features recipes and food history behind Louisiana's cuisine. This 352-page cookbook contains over 250 recipes, including those from this show. To order, call 1-800-973-7246 or write to the address on your screen.